The dog's scared enough. I think the dog would shoot
It's entertaining though. Almost.
This event has been endorsed by the Alabama Bicentennial Commission. If you didn't know, that's Alabama's bicentennial is in 2019, and Madison's sesquicentennial is in 2019. So we hope to see you all back here next year, October 26, 2019, to commemorate that event. So have fun, have a great time, be safe, and enjoy yourselves. Thanks again for all coming out. The start point is directly across. You'll see a red arrow card. Follow that arrow down the sidewalk and have your little map with you. And folks, just have a good time. Thank you for coming.
You said make sure you get it punched at every station.
Right. Here, they had 17.
What'd you say?
Who's doing the who's flying a drone?
Really?
I don't know.
That stuck out that far. And that's why I guess they couldn't get all the roots out of it. And there's others.
Right? Or is that just to encourage?
I've got her.
Paige would know.
Okay. Excellent. Oh, it's not too bad.
Hello, my name is Minerva Mills Clements. I was married to James Clements, who you might know, who is the founder of this town. He was also related to Samuel Langhorne, who you might know better as Mark Twain. My husband was very prosperous in this town. He owned 7 plantations and had a storehouse in Huntsville. Even though we only had 14 years together, we had 7 children, but only 4 survived to adulthood. Jeremiah, one of my sons, served in the Mexican War and was a U.S. Senator. My James believed in this town from the beginning. He knew that there needed to be a railroad station halfway between Huntsville and Decatur. He originally was going to name it Clemens Depot, but when the Charleston and Memphis station drew it up on their map, they renamed it Madison Station. My husband sold to men and women alike back when they didn't have property rights in their own name. He had bought or owned 15 acres and a 1-acre tract. He sold the acre and first 2 lots to George Washington Martin, who then owned the land that has now become Madison. Even though he was the founder of Madison, you won't find us buried here. Instead, you'll find us in Maple Hill Cemetery in Huntsville, by where we used to live. I heard about the celebration and thought I'd come by and tell everyone about what my husband did for this town. You may proceed that way.
Now, we had 160 acres there, and our kids used to love to play there. But we donated 1 acre of land to these people who wanted to build a church. Anybody, in fact, here know of a Methodist church on 3rd Street? Sure. Does anybody go there? Yay! Yay! Good job.
So that means I get the baby now.
Oh, you want the baby?
Yes, I would love to hold the baby.
baby. I was thinking, my good baby. Such a good baby.
My name is Nancy Lehman Martin, and I have some interesting things to tell you. My husband was George Washington Martin, and he was the first citizen and merchant in Madison Station. He purchased the first Madison town lot from James Clemens in 1857. George was already familiar with the area as he was born in 1820 on Rainbolt Mountain, also known as Rainbow Mountains, and grew up there with his 10 brothers and sisters. Elijah Thomas Martin was his brother, and you will learn a couple things about him across the cemetery. George and I were married in 1849. I was originally from Yazoo County, Mississippi, and in 1852, George was given my grandfather's business. My grandfather was William Lehman and owned and operated Lehman's Ferry, which crossed the Tennessee River. I believe that name might be a little familiar to you folks. We went on to have 8 children, including twin girls named Hassie and Hattie. My poor Hassie was killed in a train automobile accident in Texas. So it was doubly traumatic when I myself was killed in an automobile accident here in Madison in 1891. Unfortunately, my son Barry was a station agent at the time. Our dear Hattie is buried here, as are we, but her tombstone is very eloquent. She married into the Wise family, who you can also find here. And if you look around for the figure of a woman clinging to a cross, know that you have found her. Did you know that my Georgia store is still around? After his death, it was owned by R.P. Kane. It is now known as the Whitworth Realty Office on Main Street. And of course, who can forget Martin Street? George's holdings in Madison predate his purchase of land in 1857, as there is a recorded pre-survey for James Clemens and George W. Martin. One purpose was to lay out a 40-foot wide street he named Martin Street. That man just had to have a say and leave his mark. I hope you enjoyed my stories, and I hope you'll visit with us just a little while longer.
In fact, he was so popular, they made him the Justice of the Peace in Madison. He served in that office for over 50 years. My Elijah also became devoted to a card game called Rook in his later years. He would occasionally hear minor cases in Madison while serving as a judge, and he was delighted to have young lawyers come down from Huntsville to argue cases in front of him. However, if the cases lasted too long and it got too close for his time for his game of Rook, he would become very restless. On one occasion, court was being held on the porch as usual, and as various points were made, the young lawyers would produce law books, marked with paper, and came into his fire. As his friends gathered for the day, he took a bookmark and wrote on it, and carefully replaced it, then headed to the table. "You young fellows are making some fine arguments," he said, "and I wouldn't interrupt you for anything in the world. So you just go on until you're finished. You look on this piece of paper, and you'll find my decision." Elijah was well educated for the times, having studied law with an attorney in Huntsville until the Civil War started. He enlisted and served as a sharpshooter. He was also an accomplished horseman. One of his finest legacies was his love for Greek mythology and legends. Local families would ask him for suggestions for sophisticated names for their newborns, and he would oftentimes use names from early Greek literature. He was fond of Agamemnon, Antigone, Socrates, Plato, and Homer. So look around and don't be surprised if you find a Greek name or two. My dear husband passed in 1925, but not before he outlived 6 wives, including me. I was the last, so I claimed the spot beside him. But they are all here. Can you imagine?
For the education, our John followed his father's footsteps by providing for the education of children in the early 1900s. We couldn't be any prouder of any of our grandchildren or children. Wouldn't you be?
Very good.
Very good.
One of the first pioneering families in this area. Elijah, along with several others, asked President James Madison so our land legally recorded as ours. In 1818, we got 72 acres of land, including our beloved Rainbolt Mountain. Everyone around talked about Rainbolt Mountain. It became a famous local landmark. It's hard to to say when it happened, but over the years, Rainbow Mountain became Rainbow Mountain. But it is still a lovely place to explore nature. You won't find me or Elijah here. Our family cemetery was destroyed 50 years ago. But please, come visit our beloved Rainbow Mountain. And maybe, just maybe, we'll see you there.
Wonderful, thanks.
Uzziah moved from Ohio and Indiana to buy land in the Madison area at the junction of Palmer Road and County Line Road. He wrote us a letter encouraging us to move to Madison. In this letter, we learned of the death of Uzziah's young son, Charlie. He was only 10 months and 21 days old when he died. He died of what we called teething sickness back then, but was most likely poisoning from soiled milk. Bless his heart.
Oh. Wow.
We received the letter in September of 1870. We moved later that year. You can find little Charlie Boy's grave not far from our family farm. Shortly after we moved to Madison, Uzziah moved back to Ohio. We think the grief of the loss of his son was too much for him to bear. We stated that Samuel went on to become a northern nurseryman, specializing in grapes and berries. My Samuel attended to his own country. In fact, that one he was in a Palmer Farm. Okay. And the road leading to it in the historic district of Madison also bears his name.
Today I'd like to tell you all a story. This story is about my husband, George Richard Sullivan. My George was a doctor by the age of 21. He lived on Main Street and served as city councilman when the Madison station was incorporated just to Madison. We had a large family of 12 children. 9 of them lived into adulthood. You can find our little Nellie. Her husband has shoes on top of it. Our officer is right beside that. He got struck by lightning when he was only 20 years old, and behind that is Jessie. She only lived for the day. My George was a good doctor. He treated patients well into his madness. He treated patients in 3 counties: Limestone, Morgan, and Madison. He was so well loved, they named a street after him. You might be familiar with it, as it runs straight through the heart of Madison. The route is known as Sullivan Street. I died in 1917, but my George managed to stay alive until 1935. Now we are all together as a family should be. Me, George, Oscar, Nellie, and Jessie. Thank you for stopping by.
We were school teachers back in the 1900s.
So as teachers, we couldn't be married because we had to focus all of our time and energy on our work and on the students.
As it was, we had a bunch of strict rules to follow because the education that the students got was voluntary, and it was paid for by the students' parents.
So if the student didn't show up or didn't come to school, we didn't get paid by the parents, and then we wouldn't get a good paycheck.
And there's a bunch of rules on just the relationships we could have. Like, I'm sorry, but we couldn't be married and we couldn't spend time with men unless they were family members, which included just getting in a car with them or getting in a carriage with them. They had to be a father, a brother, an uncle, something like that. As well as if we wanted to go outside the city limits, we'd had to have permission from the school board members.
So as appearances go, we couldn't have colored hair and we couldn't have bright colored dresses. Under our dresses, we had to wear 2 petticoats, and we also couldn't smoke because that'd be a bad influence on the students. And if that'd be a bad influence on the students, the parents would pull them out of school, and then we wouldn't get paid by the parents.
As it also was, we had strict hours when we had to be home. We had to be home at 8 p.m. and at the school at 6 a.m. because that schoolhouse, when we walk in, was freezing cold. So we were the ones that lit the fire and gave it about 2 hours, so when at 8 a.m. when the students came in, they were coming into a warm building that was comfortable and safe for learning it.
So after lighting the fire, we would have to sweep the floors, scrub the floors, clean the blackboards, and we'd also have to clean the desks in order for the students to come into a safe and clean environment.
And when you look at old photos, you see the teachers looking very strict and miserable because they had so many rules they had to follow that restricted them with everything they did.
It hit me and mine pretty hard. I had to leave the family to find and look for a job. I was just afraid. I ran out of food a couple of days ago, but guy in my car told me about this place called Buttermilk Alley in Madison Station. Said I could get some milk and cornbread to fill my belly. Sounded good, so I thought I'd check it out. Didn't know what to expect. You hear tales like that, and sometimes they check out, and sometimes they don't. I was glad that this one checked out. I do believe that was some of the best cornbread I've ever had. I might stop back by there if I get a chance.
Hi, my name is Miss Katie, and I have another story to tell about Buttermilk Alley. Buttermilk Alley was a safe place for young folks. Back in the 1950s, courting between teenagers was very different than it is now. Buttermilk Alley was a great place for courting sweethearts to take a walk hand in hand at twilight, especially since I would be on my porch reading national news. I always kept an eye out for her. Every night I'd be out on my porch enjoying the weather or taking in the young ones as they were out for their evening stroll. Both the children and the parents felt secure knowing I was out there keeping an eye on them.
Hi, my name is Nancy Parham Humphrey. I used to live here in Madison during the Depression. My husband was William Benford Humphrey. He owned a store that was at 112 Main Street, where Fail Fireglass is today. Me and my husband lived here at 23 Front Street. Sorry. During the Depression, many folks would travel to trains in search for food and jobs. Me and my husband were very comfortable, so we had little extra to give. So I would take my milk and cornbread down to what was known as Clay Street back then. I would give the hobos the milk and cornbread to eat while they were on the way. I guess word got around because we were a popular stop back then for them. I guess folks remember the stories because later Clay Street was named as Buttermilk Alley and remains to this very day. That just shows that little kindness goes a long way. And behind me is the actual house that she lived in, and behind this shed is the door that she'll walk through to give the people their milk and cornbread. Thank you.
No bigger spiel here. We had a couple of battles in 1864. One in May with about 1,500 cavalry troops. Another in December with several hundred. The write-ups are on the wall here, and we got some handouts with all the details in them. The thing that distinguished the battles was the extreme weather in both cases. In May it was driving rain so much that they really couldn't see one another, but they managed to fight a battle from here towards Indian Creek. And in December it was the other direction and the opposite sort of weather. It was extremely cold that day, and the battle was mainly fought with sabers because it was so cold that your fingers weren't sensitive enough to reload the ammunition in the rifles.
Really makes a huge impact on a lot of people. It's great.
The girls are having a great time.
They're not freezing?
Yeah, they're a little cold, but you know, one of my leaders went out and got a hot chocolate with them, so they're going to enjoy that.
Well, good. Well, if y'all ever need anything from the Rotary Club, you're indebted. This is amazing.
Wonderful. Well, they've already asked us to be a part of it next year, so I've got us on the calendar, and hopefully we'll have more girls.
That's terrific. Thank you so much. It's wonderful.
I love it. When we lived in Germany, we would go on Volksmarches, and I was telling another lady, in Germany, you go through the country sometimes, and then they have little tents, and when you stop, and you could sit at the tables and the chairs, and then they had water, but they also had beer and wine.
Oh yeah, Jägermeister.
Yeah, Jägermeister, stay warm, it would be cold, and then you would get these little, I would collect the shields and stick them on the
cane.
On the wooden cane. So I have a cane at home and a lot of these shields from these little towns. That was a lot of fun.
One suggestion. We came too late to register. We're always late. So we thought it was like in Germany where you had like a 2-hour window to check in.
Yeah.
So we got there, I don't know what time it was. It might have been 9:20 or whatever. And so we didn't register for the walk.
In the 1970s and 80s, I was stationed in Germany for 8 years and probably went on 50 Volksmarches and enjoyed them very much, and so I thought I'd try this one here today.
What would you suggest? It's our first year, we're learning. What would you suggest we do next year?
If anything, the speeches were great in the living cemetery and so on, but they need to be shortened just a little bit. Some of them were a little bit too long and the groups piled up.
Okay.
That's
All
about
right.
it. But it was great event.
Thank you. So have you ever been on a Volksmarch before?
I have. I think you interviewed my mom. We grew up doing Volksmarches in Germany as military brats. So we were excited that they were having one here in Madison.
Good. Yeah. So what would you do? You know, well, this is our first year,
Yeah.
and so we had very little experience. What would you do to make it better next year?
I think you guys did an outstanding job.
I do too.
I do too. I wouldn't change a thing.
I agree. It was wonderful. We enjoyed it.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you said you're already on the calendar. I'm just thinking here with when's Oktoberfest? Like October 10th or 11th, somewhere like that, or 14th. Would it be a thing where you could end like here and they're putting on an Oktoberfest thing? I don't know, combine the two events?
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if
Well,
they're
and
open.
if you ended a half hour later, we'd eat lunch here because we love this place.